and welcome to Two Girls in a Pod. I'm Christy.
I am Sharon.
Welcome. We are doing a podcast today on
Shit happens. And the reason that we say that is because anybody who's in Colorado knows that we had this really bad shit storm that just happened. But fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not even sure which it is, but it happened during our time when we were planning a vacation.
So our last episode was about vacation. We are actually on vacation, so we are enjoying. But
we are currently in Cancun at Secrets Riviera Cancun, where they are just pampering us and making us feel like we are like queen for a day. Because you know that shit's going to end soon when we get back home.
We're looking at all of these pictures posted by friends and family, and there is hordes of snow in Colorado. So if you're in Colorado, I'm sorry. I hope you're enjoying all that.
Well, everybody enjoyed their day off from work, school, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But, you know, one of the things is one of the reasons we're actually talking about this today is because shit really does happen, y'all. Stuff gets in our way. We think we're on we got our path planned out. We sit there and we say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We had the plan that we were going to drive up Thursday morning, catch our flight, blah, blah, blah. And then we see the weather. And it was like, well, that's not going to work. So instead, went up Wednesday night and kind of had wouldn't call it anxiety, but we had this thing of, oh, shoot, man, what if our flight doesn't happen?
Well, there was this heightened sense of course, everybody's sitting there telling you, okay, it's the storm of the century. And so you're sitting there, oh my God, okay, is it going to happen? A lot of people, their flights were canceled. I'm so sorry for them because I really understand. We were both in that heightened sense, but we were also in that place of trying to put out our intention that everything was going to be all good. And that's why we decided to go ahead and drive up on Wednesday. And in fact, on Wednesday afternoon, they were still predicting that there was going to be snow that day. And there wasn't. It ended up just being rain. So sometimes you just kind of have to go on faith, that it's going to happen.
We also sat there and we decided we're just going to visualize ourselves getting on that plane and landing in Cancun and that everything was going to be perfect. And, it turned out great for us. For others, it didn't turn out quite as well. And, for them, it kind of does suck. Because, you have these plans, you have these ideas, and you really just want to follow through and be on your vacation or visit your family, do whatever that occasion is for you. And when it doesn't happen the way it's supposed to,
it can be really disappointing, really bring down your mood.
But the thing is remembering that there is so much stuff that is so outside of our control. And if it's outside of our control, what do we do with it? How do we make it different? Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the things we do is we realize, and we even talked about this, we had a backup plan. Well, if by some chance this flight doesn't take off, well, then I guess we'll just move stuff to the end of the vacation. But our main focus was it's just going to work.
Yes, we kept putting out into the universe the positive energy that it was going to happen regardless, and it did, and I'm really grateful that it did. But yeah, sometimes some of this stuff happens, it pops up, and a lot of times we get to so frustrated with those things that happen that we can't even see other solutions. And, we talked about it in that, and it was even, we came to talk about even adding a couple of days on the end of the trip if that's what it ended up happening or whatever, because there are other things that you can do. But sometimes when you get in those moments and you're so thinking that this is going to happen this way and it doesn't, you get really frustrated and you can't even see a solution. You can't even think up anything else because you're just so disappointed.
And I guess the thing is that realizing that we're going to have disappointments, but at the end of the day, how do we get past that so that we have that kind of clearer space in our head that we can sit there and say, you know what? If this doesn't happen, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It might have felt like the end of the world had we not made that flight.
It would have been very disappointing because it had been way too long.
And this would have been a very different podcast.
Right. It was, we try to plan vacations on a regular basis just because it helps so much with the mental health and well-being.
We talked about that on our last podcast, the reason it's important to, and with us, it's a vacation. With other people, it might be going out into the mountains. It might be going on a hike. It doesn't matter what it is. It's whatever we do that does that regenerative thing for us that really helps us to just feel like we have this energy to continue doing what it is that we love to do. Mm-hmm. And so I get it. Because like I said, being honest, had we not made that flight, this would have been a totally different podcast. I might have been here boohooing a little bit or been saying like, oh my God, how did this happen? I really wanted my vacation. But we do our best to not go there. And the reason we don't go there is because we really do believe in the importance of putting stuff out to the universe, to, whether you call it universe, God, whatever you want to do it, whether it's prayer or whatever, and realizing that things will work out.
I think the power of that focus and intention really does have more power than we even know. I mean, I think that people have a hard time wrapping their mind around that. But even in scripture, because a lot of people, will refer back to biblical things for guidance and stuff like that. And even in scripture, it will talk about when 2 or 3 people agree together and put out a certain energy about something, that it can come into fruition. And I think that when you do that, when you have that intention and that true feeling in your heart that that's what you want, I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility. And obviously it was with this, because we sat there, we knew that, everybody's telling us the storm of the century is coming. You're not flying out. And guess what? We did. So, yes, there are many, many odds against you sometimes, but sometimes it is just staying true to that. And I am so grateful that we were able to go ahead and fly out. And granted, it could have gone the other way. And if it did, we had to look at what are those other options. But sometimes we get so wrapped up in the emotion of not being able to do what we want to do when we want to do it, that we're not even able to seek out other options or solutions.
And I agree. I think that, sometimes we have to remember to keep it. I think the most important thing we do is keep in mind, what is it that we want, not what that we don't want. And we often talk about that, keeping that in a positive light versus that negativity of, oh my God, this isn't going to work. Or, it can go on and on and on, But I think the thing that really becomes more relevant is when you sit there and you really say, I get it. Shit happens, like I said, but what am I going to do with it? We get so caught up in the emotion of what's not happening. I think that we don't focus on how we could find a solution to it. Mm-hmm. We did not give up, man. We're just sitting there and we both talked about it. And we said, all I'm doing is visualizing us getting on the plane, us getting to Cancun.
I think people don't realize the importance and value of visualization. And that's one of the things that you and I talked about, is that even through that whole thing, even when we got up to Denver and it started raining and they were talking about all the snow that it was going to be coming and all of that, you and I both used visualization as a tool. Mm-hmm. And we saw ourselves being able to board the plane. We saw ourselves arriving. We saw ourselves getting off and getting to the location and just enjoying. Because that piece of it, I feel like, is so powerful.
Yes. And I think because, remember, anything that we feed, any energy that we feed, that's what's going to happen. And we are in a society, in a time, whatever you want to call it, where sometimes we are more focused on what is not happening versus what is happening. We're not focused on what we have the power over and what we don't have the power over. And life's going to happen around us, but we have to decide, what are we going to do with that life that is happening around us? Do we let it pull us into this doom and gloom? Or we do sit there and say, oh, well, that kind of sucks a little bit. Now, what am I going to do in order to not be in that place anymore? And I think that's the biggest thing, is how do we navigate that and realize that so much of it comes from those thought processes that we have. What are we thinking? What are we feeding? And we talk so much about that on this is, what is it that we are feeding the mind, the body, and the soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it? And oftentimes it's that, oh my goodness, my flight's not going to happen. This is crap. I lost this. I lost that, blah, blah, blah. Because we all do it. I don't care who we are. But I think what happens then is when you sit there and say, oh, wait a minute. I may not control the weather, but I can control what I'm thinking and feeling in my mind and put out the positivity and all of that. And some people might listen to this and say, well, that sounds like a bunch of foo-foo. And maybe it is. But what I do know is that it works.
And even during a giant snowstorm where everybody was saying, you're not going to get out, your flight's going to be canceled, there's no way. And we continue to feed the energy and, like I said, visualization of arriving here and being able to do all the things that we wanted to do. And we kept visualizing that over and over. And I really feel like that it had a positive impact. Now, a lot of other people may say, it's whatever. But
it just didn't snow at that time.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is that, yes, our flight could have been delayed. We could have been put off. I felt like that one way or another, it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that piece is important. I feel like that energy that you feed and give focus to is so important, because we can get so wrapped up in the negative and thinking it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, what purpose does it serve people?
I don't think it does. And I think that's the whole thing. I think we get so caught up in all of these thought processes that we don't realize that we're not serving ourselves or others with that total self-defeating or whatever you want to call it. When we don't realize it, I guess the biggest thing is realizing that there are so many things that are outside our control. And if I can understand and accept that weather is outside of my control, if a plane goes on time, whatever, that's all outside of my control. But what I can control is the thoughts I put out to the world, to whatever. I control that. Mm-hmm. But if I sit there and I'm continuing to wallow, I promise you, wallowing in something does not help you find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once again, we sat there and said, oh my God, what does that mean? Are we going to have to add days to the back end of our vacation? What are we going to do? Are we going to have to take a loss on it? And it didn't matter at the end of the day, because even if we did, there's nothing we could do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing that was helpful for us, is when you realize there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, you have to have that flexibility and understand that there are things that are going to happen that are outside of your control. And some people get so uptight about that, and it just ruins more than their day sometimes, And I feel like that for your own peace of mind and just to create that sense of calm within yourself, you owe it to yourself to think the most positive thing. But we are not taught that.
No.
We're always taught to think the worst, hope for the best, but expect the worst. At least, that's something I was told growing up. I remember. And I just feel like that it doesn't serve you really to do that. And it works on you mentally to stay in that place of thinking that it's not going to happen.
Well, and I think that we, in some ways, that's something that's perpetuated in society of only good things come to these people, or only this. There's all these stipulations, and I don't agree with. I really feel that, like, through our thought, through what we stay focused on, all of the things like that will help to get us and propel us to where we want to be. But when I get into that place where I am so busy paying attention to other people, or to those, not even other people, just those stupid thoughts in my head, oh my God, this flight's not going to take off. On and on and on. Fortunately, we talked with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, you know what? If it happens, it happens. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. How are we going to do this? Will we just add time to the back of our trip? Whatever it is. But I think what we realized is that we were powerless to anything that was happening as far as the weather goes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps when you have those people you can have those conversations with. We're fortunate because we talk to each other quite a bit. And we will talk about those thoughts and those feelings and anything even around the weather turning bad and just like, holy crap, this is not what we wanted. And then, yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that even when we get here that we're going to sit there and say, oh my God, the weather's going to be perfect for us. I mean, we've kind of got a little breeze going on here too.
Thank God it's not a ton of snow, but yeah.
Exactly. But it's still more ideal than what we were dealing with. And our thing wasn't even about that. It was really just about doing that, get away, do a nice reset. And then we get back and then we get to this place where we can sit there and say, we've got that reset, we've got that energy, we've got all that stuff. And that's what vacations provide. And that's what we talked about on our last episode is the importance of those things that we do that create that reset in us, that re-energize us and stuff like that. And we wanted that. That's what this trip is for us. There's so much crap. Guess what? We don't get a control, but it's okay. It's not our job to control everything outside of us. And once again, remember, shit's gonna happen.
And it's not to say that it's not difficult, because to maintain that positivity when you're looking out the window and you're thinking, oh my God, okay, so they're saying it's the storm of the century and we're going to be stuck here and all of this, I mean, yes, those things are going to come up. They're going to happen. So maintaining that positivity about it, I understand it can be a struggle.
Well, and I think not even that, but also understanding that then if we get snowed in, now we're snowed in Denver, which is only about an hour drive from our home, but we don't even get to drive home, so I mean, it was just a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, guess what? We made it here. Things turned out good. Now, for some people, it didn't. For that, I feel bad because I really do feel like, everybody deserves those times away and all of that other stuff that for whatever the occasion is or whatever. So that kind of sucks for them. But there were a lot of people who got to get out and got to, we met this really great lady on before the flight, and she happened to, we meet her in Denver and find out that she's flying to Cancun, and she was there like, oh my God, I've never traveled alone when I go through, people always bugging me and stuff. She goes, will you please help us? Will you please, can I walk with you and do that? Where they're like, well, absolutely. So even like that, just from the start of this, we met this really nice lady and we got to help her out, and it was great.
Mm-hmm.
She was happy. She was on this vacation. We've met some really, this is our second day into the vacation, and we've met some really cool people.
Right.
We've had conversations with them, just really enjoyed stuff. And I guess that's what it is. Stuff's going to happen. We don't even getting here. We don't, even though we have this idea or this vision, there's stuff outside of our control that can change the direction of what's going on, but it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is how you feel and you think.
Yes. And so much of it has to do with the intent and being in the moment for ourselves. If we're able to experience those moments fully and stay here in that moment, then I think that we come to a different realization. I mean, I feel like that gratitude has so much to do with the whole thing that we're talking about. I mean, I feel like that just having gratitude for the fact that we were able to fly out in that, but just that everything would play out the way that we intended. I feel like that is so powerful. And I think people don't realize how powerful it is.
What I think even on top of that is just have gratitude for the fact that if it happens, if it doesn't happen or whatever, to have gratitude for the fact that at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world and you're still okay.
Yeah.
As much as you would love to do. And I mean, and that's the thing. It's okay to have that disappointment.
Yeah, because we're all the same, like in the fact that we want, what we want when we want it. It doesn't always play out that way. But we all have this thing like that we're sort of, when we plan something, it's almost becomes a thing of
that it better happen just exactly the way I envisioned.
Right. But not necessarily always does it happen that way.
And I agree. And I think the thing is that, understanding that life is always happening around us. And because life is always happening around us, we have to also understand that we have to know where we are. What is our headspace? Am I buying into and letting those external things drive me, and not only drive me, but more so create that mood in me? Or do I sit back and say, yes, stuff is happening. What do I have the power to change? What is it that I can do about this situation? What are some of the solutions? How do I, and to make sure you don't get in this funk, because then we get into the blaming game. Well, it was the airline's fault. It was this person's fault. It was, and the thing is I don't think it's really anybody's fault in that aspect.
Well, and not only that, it doesn't really even matter it's not even about that, whose fault it is. You know what I mean?
Well, I agree, but I think that people go to that, don't you?
Oh, definitely. Yes. How many couples did we pass in our whole traveling process that we have heard some arguments and things like that? And they're like, yeah, I know when we were trying to get to our gate, I was listening to a couple that they were like, it's a good thing that I told you to do this and to do that. Or we wouldn't even be here because the snow was so bad and you thought we weren't going to go and it wasn't happening and you were just going to shut it all down. You can get so wrapped up in all of those things, so easily.
Oh, I agree. And then when we get into that, then everybody's fighting and arguing with each other, which is crazy because I don't think that really helps anybody in that aspect.
Right. And understanding that, there's just things that happen that are out of your control. But that whole concept of being able to maintain your calm throughout that whole thing, that's more valuable than anything. That peace that you have within yourself.
Well, I think not only just that, when you have those little outbursts because something's not going your way, so to speak. And then when you get done with it, and then you feel like, oh crap, why did I even act that way? There's so many other, I think, thoughts that come into that and feelings that come into that when you're not behaving at your best. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think there's a frustration when we realize that we've allowed those emotions or those circumstances to kind of run over us. And then we start to have these behaviors and that. And then we step back and they're like, shit, why did I just really act like that? Mm-hmm. What was that about?
Yeah, because you can get so caught up in the emotion and just let it run rampant. And then you lose sight of things. And then in the end, you're the only one that suffers over that.
Absolutely. And I think that that's one of the things that we're learning, with life. I think we just keep learning as we go along. But I think that is one of the main things, too, is that we are learning that stuff outside of our control is outside of our control. I do not have the power to control weather. I don't have the power to control United Airlines or whoever else I'm flying with. I am so powerless to all this shit. And because I am, I think that becomes the power is when we stop trying to control stuff we don't control and we give up that power to this illusion anyway. And so I think that's kind of one of the things I really saw in us this time is that we didn't get caught up in all of that. And it was like, if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. We made the modification. Instead of driving up Thursday, we just said, okay, we'll just drive up Wednesday and, hope for the best. If there's shitty roads and we're already up here, we'll just have to count, we'll have to just go back a day or two or whatever that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just when you get so caught up in the emotion of, this didn't happen the way that you wanted to or that, you're not able to focus on a solution.
And I think that's the whole thing. And so like even for us, I think that when we get to sit there, we get to sit back and once again, we were fortunate because we really did get to come out and, we're enjoying this beautiful beach and the stuff like that and this beautiful weather. But once again, it's not the end of the world. And it wouldn't have been the end of the world. Close. Really, really close. Right on the edge. No, I think what it was is it really just kind of helps you to understand that life is ebbing and flowing. And we've talked about that too. There's an ebb and flow to life and all of those kind of things. And I think that this is just one of those things we learn to ebb and flow with it. And fortunately, knock on wood, it ebbed and flowed in our direction.
Yes.
It didn't for other people. And for that, I'm truly sorry. And I think that, it really sucks for them. But if it didn't work for you and if you're staying stuck in it, that makes it more difficult even.
Yep.
So I guess the thing is like we said, shit happens. And how do we navigate that and get around it and not get stuck in it? And the disappointment's a huge thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, even though disappointments is as huge as it is, we also have the ability to get out of that disappointment and to realize that it's not the end all to beat all.
Mm-hmm.
And so this week we sat there and we said, people, we are on vacation after all. So this is going to be a kind of short, to the point.
But keeping your cool.
Yeah.
In those situations. And it's really important to be able to do that for your own mental stability, to be able to keep going and understand that, stuff happens and that there are things, sometimes there's solutions that can be made, but we can't get so caught up in the emotion of it that we can't even focus on a solution or a different way.
Exactly. And I think that's the big thing, and hopefully everybody gets out of this, is that even though life is happening around us and things like that are happening, the thing that's most important is, what are you doing in those situations? How are you taking care of you and not letting that take control of you being in control of it, and understanding that you're much stronger and much more powerful than you even think you are in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, stuff's going to happen. We're going to have stuff happening all the time that is outside of that control. But what do? We realize that we just wait for another day.
Yeah.
There's another day when you have the opportunity to do those things that you want to do.
Yeah.
We hope that when we talk about these things that it resonates with you and that you understand too that, stuff's going to happen. How are you going to rise above that? How are you going to handle and deal with those disappointments? Because they're disappointing.
Yeah.
And I guess what we hope is that you realize that there's a solution. There's multiple solutions for every problem. And sometimes even if we have that situation where it doesn't work out quite the way we want it, it's not the end of the world. We just navigate it and figure out something else.
Yep.
But like we said, we are on vacation. So this is going to be a shorter podcast because we really want to enjoy our vacation. But we also wanted to just kind of touch base with you guys and let you know that, like we said, shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
But we're hoping that that's not happening with you all. We hope that things are going really well and that the things that you are envisioning that are positive for you are coming true.
Keep calm and carry on.
Exactly. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it. And we will be back. And so enjoy yourself. And, remember that stuff is going to happen, but it's okay. No matter what's happening, it's going to pass. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And as always, you can find us on
twogirlsinapod.com, or you can also follow our Facebook page, which is under the same name, Two Girls in a Pod, Life's Journey. And we are also on YouTube under
Adventures of Two Girls in a Pod, Life's Journey. And we truly appreciate everybody who likes,
follows,
subscribe, all of those things. Y'all know what we're asking for. So we truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we will be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.